Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to talk about how I started a mobile welding business for $5,000. I'm going to go over the tools you'll need, some of the more expensive equipment, and this is something, the idea is you can work your day job, save up, and pay cash for it. That's what I did. And in times like right now when work is really slow, it's a good thing because I don't have to worry about payments. So stay tuned, guys. So, I know it's hard to see, but I took and I wrote down everything that I spent. So I spent $2,600 on my truck, and I'm gonna go into depth on all this. So, back to maybe where you can see me, guys. Yeah, this thing. So I spent $2,600 on my truck. I bought of course, used. I think the only thing I actually bought new was some of the MISC tools, the grinder, and my welder. Only things I bought new. So let's break down the truck first. I bought a 2002 F450. I believe at the time it had like 209,000 miles on it, and it just rolled over 225,000. It's been a good truck for me. If you're going to start for $5,000 or less, obviously it's not a lot of money to spend on stuff, but you can get going. I've proven that. The thing to remember is, in my area, at the time, I service farther now, but at the time I didn't service a large area. So, like, breaking down 30 miles from home, I don't want to say it's okay, but it's doable. If you break down 30 miles from home, you know, a towing bill won't break the bank, or, 30 miles from home, in my case, I would call somebody to come get me. Having said that, the truck has actually been phenomenal. I just call it general maintenance on it, you know, oil changes, tires. Let's see, what else have I put? It had a cracked windshield when I bought it, so I put a new windshield in. And I have made upgrades, and but it wasn't much. But I had $2,600, and I wanted a truck because I was actually doing side jobs before this. And how them side jobs would happen was I had a car. What was I driving? I was driving a 2008 Charger, and anyways, I would put my Clark 130 wire welder in it, throw the tank in there, and I would go do like sheet metal jobs. I'd weld on like body panels. I think that was about the biggest job I ever did with just that setup, and I think I got like 3 or 4, maybe even $500 for that job. It's been a few years, I can't remember, but yeah. Anyways, off of that, with that, I think it was $400 he paid me. Maybe it was $350. I don't remember. It was only like a couple days worth of work, but I bought my grinder, and I think I bought a few MISC tools at that, and then I saved up money for my welder. And I don't know, you guys might not be able to see this really well. I thought I could just write it on a piece of scrap metal. I do kind of plan on maybe getting a whiteboard at some time. That'd probably be the best thing. But anyway, so that was my first welding job, or first type of welding jobs that I'd go do sheet metal, or if it was like an 1/8 inch thick, I'd do it with that little 130. It's actually a pretty good welder for what it is. Granted that it's like older than me, and like literally I remember it was the welder my dad had in the garage. But anyways, that's where I got started. So saved up money from working my 9-to-5 job, and I bought my truck. So I was excited when I bought my truck. I had a toolbox, put the toolbox on it, just one you get from Tractor Supply, and I put my Clark welder in there. And I started doing little jobs, and that worked out pretty good. I was tubbing it out, is what they call it, and that's not working off like a flatbed or a welding bed. It's just working off the standard bed that came. The trouble I had with that was I was already rocking a truck that had close to 250,000 miles on it in the great state of Michigan, where, you know, half the year our roads are covered in salt. So that box was rotting out, and I'd throw metal in there and my tools and whatnot, and I think when I finally took that bed off, there were 2 out of the 6 or maybe even 8 bed mounts actually holding it there, and they were the back 2, so my bed would flap around. But again, I could pay cash for it, and I haven't had to worry. I've had this truck going on 3 years now, and I've never had to make a payment on it. So first thing, $2,600, I bought my truck. Then I believe my next big purchase was actually my welder. For my welder, I think it was $1,700. I bought, and I don't know if you guys have seen it in a video yet, but I bought a Lincoln Electric Square Wave TIG 200. Now I know people are probably out there like, you could probably find like an old Ranger or a Bobcat, or I think they're Hobart Elites, or maybe even an old SA 200 for close to $2,000. You could. I wasn't set on the idea of mobile when I bought this. I was kind of more leaning towards like, I just do a little work out of my shop and build that way. The truck was just kind of something, it kind of all just fell together. So I bought the Lincoln TIG 200 for the idea that I can stick weld with it, but I can TIG weld mild steel and aluminum. And at the time I was working as a TIG welder, and I guess I kind of had the blinkers on to being diverse with other processes. So my thought was, I'll TIG weld in my garage, because there's not tons of guys that know how to TIG weld. There's a lot of guys out there who can pull a trigger on a MIG gun. There's a lot of guys out there who can run a decent bead with a Stinger. Not a lot of people both have the ability to and can TIG weld. So I thought I'd be a TIG welder, but which is weird because I have a structural steel certification for stick welding. So I guess, I don't know. I guess I was a young kid, one of those things you just don't really know yet. But anyways, I bought my welder, and that worked. The trouble with that, like, when I was doing mobile jobs with just my little Clark 130, just about everybody's garage I could plug that thing into and run a good bead. Versus, like, I tried doing it once at this person's, it was kind of like a hobby farm thing. I was welding on a gate, and I thought, hey, I just spent $1,700 on this new welder. I want to use it. So I plugged it into the wall, threw I don't even remember, it was probably like a 7014 rod in there or something. It was 7014, because when I picked up the welder, I picked up a few other things, and I think I got like a 2-pound thing in 7018 or 7014, which I just used up the other day. I don't run that stuff a lot. Anyways, so I got everything, got my mask, gloves on, strike an arc, and I get like a tack, and it blew a breaker. Well, shoot. You know, I don't really get why, but it did. So I unplugged it, brought out the little Clark 130, and I welded the job. So my next thought was, man, if I'm going to use this thing mobile, I've got to make sure I have the capability to power it. And this, I think it came out, I think it all works out. I haven't put it to a calculator. But I was working for a guy, and I was explaining what I just said. You know, I got this Lincoln welder. It's just I go door to door. Some people have the capability to run it. Some people don't. And he said, well, I got a generator. Let's see if that will run it. So I said, okay. And I don't even remember what I was doing for him. I was fixing like a leg on a table that he had in his shop or something. Or maybe it was a piece of equipment. I can't remember, but... so anyways, and that is where I think it's a... What kind of generator is it? Excuse me. It's a Coleman Power Mate with 6,250 watts. That's where that came from. So if you see that on my truck, I got that about 2-3 years ago. And so at the end of it, I think I charged him like $300 for whatever I did. And he said, okay, I can either pay the $300 or you can have the generator. And I thought, okay. I was still working my 9-to-5 job at that point, so I thought, I don't really need the money, but I really need a way to power this welder so I can move on to bigger and better jobs. And so I said, yeah, I'll take the generator. I never even checked the oil in it or anything, so if you get that, check the oil and have some on you. I've only had it not start on me once, and I was literally like 2 minutes down the road, and I pulled the cap out, and I was like, oh, it's low on oil. And I was just coming off like a big job on the week, so I guess probably that big job, it burned up a little bit. But, and the guy was like, hey, I got some oil, and we threw it in there, fired it up, and it's ran ever since, and I've just been checking the oil. But, so, anyways, that's the next piece of equipment I got, and, you know, then stuff really picked up, and blah, 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 blah. At this point is where I think I spent about $400 on, like, MISC tools, like clamps, and, extension cords, and all that kind of stuff. At this point, I was still tubbing out, using the radial bed on the truck. And then I thought, man, I really need a set of torches. So my brother had a set. It was actually, yeah, my brother had a set in his shop, but he had just bought plasma cutters, so he thought, I'll probably never even use these things again. And I called him up. I said, I have $200. Will you take $200 for your torches? And that came with a couple different tips, a couple that I've lost now. I think his bottle was full, but it wasn't as big as a bottle as I have now. Torches, I think there's like 50 feet of lead, and they're propane torches. I would rather have acetylene, and one day I'll switch it over, but for right now, propane works. So I got torches. And that's pretty much like how I went through, and which I guess I need to add this up. I'm pretty sure this is right, though. I'm going to use my calculator because it's Sunday, and nobody should have to do math on Sundays. So $2,600 for a generator. Then we had $1,700 for a welder. $300 for the generator because that's about what the job cost. $200 for the grinder. $100 for the grinder. Excuse me, $200 for the torches, and then that leaves you with $100 for MISC tools. Like I said, I'm right on if you take off the $300 I paid for the generator, because I didn't actually have to shell $300 out of my pocket, but I did have work invested into it. So I guess for this it's $5,300, which MISC tools, like I said, I probably could have got away with some of the jobs I was doing just spending $100 on MISC tools. I just was kind of looking at my box, and I figured there's probably about $400 worth of MISC tools in there, because I've added more to all the tools and stuff. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about pros and cons about starting out really, really small or going and getting a loan for it. So, pro about starting out really, really small and having everything paid for. Well, it's paid for. You don't have to worry about paying the bank at the end of the month for your welder or your truck. A con, which, don't get me wrong, guys, I'll never tell anyone to borrow money unless you have to. I borrowed money when I got right out of high school. I went into trade school, and I was borrowing money to like buy my cars and like that kind of stuff. It's fine, because I had to get there, and I didn't have the amount of money I could, and it worked out. But I'm not the kind of person that likes having to pay somebody. I would rather pay for it up front and never have to worry about it again. The con to doing it, starting out small and just gradually going, is 3 years ago I took on my first side welding job that wasn't for like a friend or family member. And I started in a car with a welder that was given to me by my dad. So over the next 3 years, I just started buying stuff, and it added up to around $5,000. Which leads me to my point, if you start out small and you're advertising a lot, you're going to constantly be growing. Whereas if you went to the bank and got a loan and got everything you'd need, you're more likely to be set for a while. See, for me, I would rather grow gradually. But one of the things that slowed me down is, 3 years ago, I was living in an apartment. who was at the time my girlfriend. So what happened to me in those 3 years was I bought an engagement ring, I got married, and there was a lot of cost in that. So you'll start mobile welding and you'll see an influx of cash coming in. And what you do with that cash is completely up to you. But for me, I went with, I'm getting these jobs, they're paying okay. I'm still working my 9-to-5 job. So I chose, which I would choose again, but I chose to put money into the wedding and the ring and all my personal life and not like my business. And it took me longer to be able to sustain a life of my own as an entrepreneur. But in the same sense, you buy all that stuff with the bank's money, you're still going to have to pay the bank every month for at least a couple, 2 or 3 years. Now, granted, my truck isn't even to the point now where a lot of guys would go out and get the money from the bank, but it's getting there. It's really getting there. So, I don't know, guys. It's just kind of a video, but I've had a lot of people ask. I go to a lot of places. I service a lot of people, and everyone kind of looks at, my truck, and they go, well, that's different, because I don't have a $2,000 or more welder sitting on it and, all this really great fancy stuff. All that stuff is okay. One day I'll have it. As a matter of fact, I was just looking at its own engine-driven welder earlier this week. I'm waiting to see if I get a couple more jobs coming in with all this coronavirus stuff. A lot of my work is shut down. This week's going to be a really slow week. It's supposed to rain all but Thursday and Friday. I think it's supposed to pick back up and rain the weekend. But, and I don't have a shop space to do a lot of shop work. I'll do a little bit, but this is actually not my garage. It's my father-in-law's. He just lets me store some tools here. So I try not to work in it a whole lot, because then you make a mess, and it's just, big deal. So anyways, guys, my advice, if you are a young kid just getting started, pay cash for what you can. If it's like you lost your job, and I wouldn't even recommend, now I think about it, I wouldn't even recommend it this way. If you lost your job and you didn't have money coming in, and you had the thought of, I'm going to go to the bank, get a loan, go buy all this stuff, I guess if you're going to do that, talk to people first. Get clients. And not just in the welding industry, but I've talked with so many other guys that I went to school with or I knew in college that they got an idea, they went, got a loan, started their idea, and then figured out, wow, there's already a lot of people in my area that do that service and nobody wants a new guy, or there's nobody in my area that does that service because it's not needed. If you're going to go to the bank and find a loan, and get a loan, guys, go out and find work for it. The bank's not going to care. I mean, I've had friends that were bankers, and I've gotten in trouble with money and went to them and said, hey, this didn't work out. And they've looked at me and said, buddy, I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do for you. My hands are tied. And then, that guy you were friends with, now you just strained your relationship a little bit. And you don't want to ruin your reputation with the bank or your credit based off of if you're a young guy starting out, say you got $20,000 to buy a truck and your welder and your tools, and you ruin your credit on that because you just couldn't find the work to pay them and live. Then when it's time to go get that big loan for your house or, whatever, which it'd probably be your house, you're talking over $100,000. You go, well, you couldn't even pay us back when we loaned you $20,000. Now you're wanting us to loan you $100,000? I don't think so. So that's just my kind of tip on the situation. Big thank you to everyone who subscribed to the channel this week. I haven't checked today, and it's not like huge numbers or anything like I eventually want the channel to get, but it's definitely better than nothing. And seriously, guys, I've talked to some of you guys in the comments. It's fun, it's new. Granted, I am not great at videoing yet. Bear with me. If you guys have tips, let me know. I know you can't see this much. It's better than what I originally thought. I originally thought I'd come put this up here and use my white chalk and write on it, and you could not even see that at all unless I got you like this close. So I am trying my best, but I'm trying to work again with what I have, which is just I don't even know what GoPro this is. A GoPro 7, I think. But guys, thank you so much for subscribing. If you're new, you're seeing this for the first time, please subscribe to my channel. I've got like papers full of ideas I'm gonna do. I'm gonna post a video every Wednesday, it's looking like, 'cause that kind of works out good. I can film them during the weekend or whatever, or throughout the week, and then edit them Monday and Tuesday at the latest, and have them uploaded by Wednesday. So thank you guys so much. It's great having y'all. I can't wait to have more of you. And till next video, I guess my advice would be get out and get better. It's what we do every day as welders. Every day you got to get better. You got to get better. It's a really fun industry to be. I found, and maybe I've never really worked in other industries, so it's probably the same way for mechanics and contract and construction guys, carpenters, and all that. But I found with welding that people get really competitive in the industry, which I think is great. I think competitiveness drives quality in a sense, but you know, guys really take pride in their work, which they should, no matter if you're a welder or you know, sharpen pencils for a living. But I'm not gonna ramble on much longer, guys. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, viewing my videos, and if you're new, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and you know, I'll talk to you a little bit. Ask if you got any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. If you just want to share, maybe if you're an older gentleman or lady that you've worked in whatever industry, if you want to share some tips for some young guys, because that seems to be what I'm getting on this channel, which is great. Young guys just starting out, please, 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 please share. And till next video, guys. See ya.